Force on Force features the largest and strongest outdoor military organization in the country. These are the men and women who make it possible to enjoy the freedom to hunt and fish. It is with great pride that we bring you Force on Force podcast, coming to you from the Force on Force TOC.
Welcome to the Force on Force podcast. I'm your host, Shawn Dalrymple. We're here in the Force on Force TOC. All our shows start in Force on Force TOC, and our podcast starts here. Hey, we're back. We're kind of not doing them quite as often because it's a hunting season, and I know that I have a hard time getting out of the woods. And our guest tonight's the same as I. We had to kind of both try and time that we could get out of the woods to talk. Right now, we're in the middle of Army Buck Hunters Force on Force airing on the Sportsman's Channel, and our guest has kind of been part of the last two episodes where we've had two archery kills, one with a cold buck that I couldn't, they couldn't get off the ranch there that I shot with the fire in a hole tomahawk broadhead, and then a mouflon ram that we actually killed last week. And so Kenny from Fire in a Hole, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself and kind of tell us your official title and all that?
Well, I'm the owner and inventor of the broadheads that we call the brand we call Fire in the Hole. I have two different versions of it, a fixed blade and a mechanical. And I know that Shawn is partial to the mechanical, which a lot of people are. But it's the only mechanical that has reached a 4-inch span that has ever been invented, produced, sold, used. And it's been quite a workhorse, and it's done things that even myself as the inventor and stuff I didn't think it would do, because people like Shawn and other customers, you guys do things with this broadhead that I never thought it would do. You're showing exactly how far it can go, and it's been pretty amazing. Shawn's the only person that I know that has put that broadhead through the back leg bone on a doe.
You weren't going to bring that up, were you, man?
Well, because the reason I bring that up is because I'm so amazed that you were able to do that. I mean, we all know that errant shots happen.
Right.
Whenever you're bow hunting, it just happens.
Yeah.
I've been bow hunting for 49 years, and I mean, I can count on, both hands how many times that's happened, but it does happen,
Right.
And with this design and the way it is if someone would have told me that you could have done that, I'd have told you no way, because the physics and the forces and the things that it takes to go through that big bone back there, that's just an immense amount of pressure and very hard to do. But you did it.
Well, I think it really, and so to set kind of the stage and the deal, I think when this happened, the doe was quartering, and I shot a little bit further back and exited out the hip. And doe was dead in like 20 seconds because, I never so much blood and hit that more artery back there in the hip. But I told Kenny, I said, you really misnamed this broadhead, because it really should have been called the holy shit broadhead, because that was the first thing I thought. and I think everything that I've shot, and anybody that's been with me when I shot something, has pretty much had that same reaction, to include the deer that my big Alabama buck I shot back mid-October. My good friend Mike Rascal came help me load that thing up in a side-by-side, and that was the first thing he said, because we couldn't show the exit wound pictures of that thing. But just in general, talking about archery broadheads, fixed blades versus mechanicals, there's a whole dynamic of people in the industry who won't even shoot mechanical broadheads because of failure rates over the years of mechanicals. And so as we talk about this whole perspective, there's all things that go into the mechanicals that we talk about: loss of kinetic energy, the loss of not being able to cut on contact. Those are some of the things that you took into accountability when you were kind of designing this broadhead. Things we're after. For me, when I look at a broadhead and what kind of I thought about it, first of all, it's not anything I've ever seen. And you see a lot of broadheads out there. I mean, you go to ATA shows, you're going to see tons and tons of broadheads out there. But when you see Kenny's broadhead, you're going to be like, it's nothing like you've ever seen. So once you get your head wrapped around something that's very different, the thing that I look at is, I told Kenny this, and I'm going to let you kind of expand on those things we talked about, cut on contact. But the thing I really liked and when I understood it was, I'm being a military guy. We shoot full metal jackets downrange because here's the reason. I don't know if the audience knows this, but it takes more people to care for wounded than it does to care for dead people. So that's why you shoot full metal jacket. NATO shoots full metal jacket. So bullet rips right through. There's no expansion. Well, everybody in the hunting world, what do you do when you choose a rifle round? You look for things that's got the most expansion quality whatsoever. So I was shooting fixed blades, and I had problems making some great shots and having to track these deer. And so I see Kenny's broadhead and understand the characteristics I look for in a bullet. I'm like, these are those things that I look for in a bullet. Why can't I have that in a broadhead? And so that's what led me when I saw and that's what I think of when I think of that. And you're going to talk way more elegant and understanding of all those things that we talk. But that's when I look at it. I'm looking for something when I look at a fixed blade that gives me an expansion of what I like from a rifle.
Right. The expandable broadheads in my opinion, have an advantage over top of the fixed blades, because I get this question all the time. So which one do you shoot? Right. Well, I have that ring broadhead that takes the 1-inch hole out of the animal. And I mean, it's devastating. I mean, it works exactly like I think it does. It takes a plug out of the animal. And I was asked to, make it mechanical. Well, when I think of mechanical, I'm like you were talking about a full metal jacket, right? Just goes in and goes through. That's kind of what your fixed blades do. Now they cut and they do a real good job, obviously. But if you could, in my mind, if you could open that up and expand that to the largest cut that you could get, wouldn't everybody want to do that? I mean, isn't that what we're trying to do, is make the most damage to the vitals of that deer as possible, right? I mean, the more damage you do, the faster it bleeds, the faster it's on the ground, the more blood trail, blah, blah, blah. I mean, everything kind of works together. So when I sit down I had this concept in my head that I wanted to make a 4-inch broadhead. Well, I'll ask everybody, how do you make a 4-inch broadhead? Well, I know from making this standard ring broadhead that I make, most of my weight is in the ferrule of that broadhead. If you look at all the other expandable broadheads, I can tell you guys 50%, at least 50%, sometimes 60 to 65% is in the ferrule and the point. The blades are just kind of coming along for the ride. They are usually 40% or less of the actual weight of the broadhead. But in my mind, the blades of any broadhead is what cuts and what makes the damage, not the ferrule and not the point. So if you want to make a bigger broadhead, you got to take as much weight out of the ferrule as you can and put it in the blades. That's my whole concept. That's exactly what it is.
Yeah, so I think you've kind of laid out the problem set. I'm a military, they taught us to be a problem identifier, and you've kind of laid out a really good problem set right there as you expand on it more. And I think that's good to kind of lay it out like that.
Yeah, because what you're trying to do is you're trying to get inside that animal and make as much trauma as you possibly can. That's what a bullet does. That's what broadheads do. I got a good friend that's an orthopedic surgeon, and we've discussed that and stuff. And he's like, any kind of trauma that you can do in that, like a car accident and stuff, internal bleeding and that kind of stuff is what mainly kills people. It's not what happens on the outside. It's what happens on the inside. So my idea was to make as much damage on the inside as possible. Now, everyone knows that you can't throw a 4-inch broadhead in the side of a deer efficiently. You can, and we've done it, but it's not recommended because you're going to kill your kinetic energy, and it's, you may get all the way through the deer, and sometimes you don't. So I had to come up with this way that I could get this broadhead in there and expand to where I'm fully open at 4 inches when I get into the vitals. So how do you do that? Well, Shawn mentioned it earlier. I think I'm not quite sure on this one, but I think I'm the only mechanical that has a cut-on contact blade, I think. And what that does is there's a little angle on the front of it. If you guys have never seen the broadhead, take your fingers and make the peace sign. That's what it looks like. Now imagine that coming in and your fingers are the blades. And you have an angle on your finger that goes out to the side. And when that hits, what's going to happen? The fingers are going to separate. The angle on the front of that broadhead is what we call the controlled expansion angle. And what that allows it to do is that it allows it to open at a certain speed to where it's not like real quick, so it gets hung up in the rib cage, but it's not like real slow, so when it gets into the vitals, it's still only 2 inches. It allows it to go in the side of that animal, and within about a 2 to 2.5 inch area there, it opens fully using the animal as the trigger. So when you enter those vitals, you've made a 7/8 inch hole about to 1.25 inches, and then as it's opening, it goes to a full 4 inches when it hits your lungs. Now I could show you pictures to prove that, but it's usually when we start having problems because the trauma of this broadhead is I have a hard time showing it a lot because of all the blood, guts, and gore that goes along with it. I mean, I've been asked several times to tone it down, and I do get it because I can show you some really gory stuff that people have shot and sent it to me. Now I'm interested in that because I want to know the performance of my broadhead. Okay, that doesn't bother me. The bloodier the better, and the more that people can show me of what it actually does to the vitals and the skin and the bones. That's what I do. We autopsy everything that we shoot.
Yeah,
just I think, performance.
Yeah, and that's what
I know. Over the years, I've asked Shawn, "Give me a picture of this. Give me a picture of that," because I want to see what it did for him and how it worked, how everything worked together. Because I will always try to improve and do better. And if I find something that I can improve, I'll do it in a second. Because that's what I'm trying to do. Is I'm trying to make the ultimate broadhead that gives you the best chance in the field of recovering your animal. Period. That's what I'm all about.
So here's another thing I think, and we get this question a lot, Kenny, and I know, does it fly straight? And I know it does because people look at it and they're like, it's back to it. I think you said it perfect. It's the peace sign, right? With your 2 fingers. They look at it and they're like, because it's something they've never seen. But I'll tell the listeners, I don't shoot it, but when I shoot it on my bow and an animal, that's the only time I don't have to tune it for my bow. I don't have to tune it. What my field points hit is what that broadhead is going to hit when it's coming off of the animal. That's how it shoots. Can you explain a little bit why that is and why? So that's because I don't think that's kind of understood either.
The accuracy of the broadhead is right on the pin and field point accurate. I know everyone in the industry says, "Yeah, our broadheads are field point accurate." Well, I guarantee you mine are. They wouldn't be on the market. The reason that it's field point accurate is there's a few reasons. But the blades are actually the broadhead. That's what it is. It's 2 big blades that are 2.25 inches thick, 50 thousandths wide, and 200 thousandths. They're 200 thousandths thick, 200 thousandths wide, 50 thousandths thick. I'll get it. Okay. So they're like mini knife blades, little pocket knife blades. Okay. But I just told you they're 50 thousandths thick. So they're only 100 thousandths total thickness. Well, if you look at the other ferrules on the market, they're 1/4 inch to 3/8 of an inch. All of them. Some of them are big, thick, and, a lot of blades there and everything moving around. The front of my broadhead is the smallest profile of any other broadhead on the market. That's number one. Number two, I'm only shooting 7/8 of an inch open. So I don't have a whole lot of wind drag up there. All right. The blades we make one blade and just turn it around on each other. Because here's the deal. Over top of the ferrule, the design of the blades has a hump on the bottom of it. That when the broadhead opens, has a radius that comes out and meets each other over top of the ferrule and makes that cutting point above the ferrule. That's what gives this broadhead a whole surface out front that cuts. Okay? We use a single bevel blade, and what that single bevel blade does, it's sharpened like a lawnmower, one way. Single bevel blades, when you shoot them, spin. Go look at any of the other broadheads on the market. I think Iron Will's a single beveled. It spins when you shoot it. So doesn't mine. So doesn't all the single bevels on the market. Will spin naturally because the air comes up one side and down the other side, and that causes it to rotate clockwise. Along with your right helical fletching, it'll just spin through the air all the way to it. And y'all know that spin on a bullet is what makes it accurate. So that's what makes us accurate.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing how accurate it is. I mean, that's been my favorite thing is I don't have to shoot it to tune my bow to it. I mean, it's what I shoot with my field points is what I'm going to hit with that thing.
I do this challenge to a lot of people that have a question about the accuracy. When they buy a pack of broadheads, I challenge them straight up. Do not practice with it.
Yeah.
Put it on your arrow and go out and shoot that meat deer. And if it doesn't hit right where you want it to, call me. I don't get any calls. Well, I might get a call and they go, holy shit, you were right. Shawn's right. I get holy shit on the phone. It's hilarious. I got one, what is today, Thursday? I got one Tuesday. A guy out of Wisconsin called me. First thing on the phone, holy shit, brother. I'm like, okay, what'd we do? And his son smacked it's a real nice solid 8-point.
Yeah.
With it. And he didn't go but about 28 yards. And there's blood everywhere. It's a great picture. I got a great one of the young man. He's 15 years old. I'm jealous. When I was 15 years old, I didn't shoot a deer like that. And that was but that first thing out of his mouth, holy shit, man.
The accuracy, just so everybody knows, so I'll tell you that on the TV show, that's exactly what we did. Neither one of those animals we shot on the TV show were were put on those arrows right before we went out. So they should never. So, and you know this, we've talked about this. It is so important when shooting a mouflon. Arrow placement is huge on a mouflon. If you don't know anything about a mouflon, their skin, because they're so hairy, you have to have it has to be a more perfect shot than probably anything else out there because their skin is so thick, it's so hairy, it's a very tough animal to shoot. It's not quite as tough as shooting a hawk in the plate, but because of all that hair, you got to make a perfect shot. There's not a big margin of error where you need to shoot that animal. And so both of that coal buck I shot and that mouflon, we shot them without doing exactly what you said. We never field tuned them. We just put them right on there, walked right out and did what we're supposed to. And so that's kind of that's my big thing because, I mean, think about it. I mean, I don't want to have to field tune my stuff, or tune it to. I want to be able to shoot my field points, and then I want to be able to go out and then just put on a broadhead on and be able to do that. I mean, think about this. That's the same thing we do with our rifles. Why do we want to have to do anything different with our bows? I mean, to me, that's completely like, reverse training of everything. I don't want to change anything. I want everything to be the same. I don't want to have to, a lot of difference. So I think that is like kind of a huge key piece of that broadhead. And the other piece I think is kind of cool is the fact that you made it, the simplicity of it, and the fact that you used something that was readily available, that if you were ever in a bind, that you didn't have to come back to you to get it. And that was the band's to close it, which are just dental bands.
The dental
Yeah.
bands, 316, extra heavy. Yep.
Because I think about so many things that we buy that you got to specifically go back to whoever to get that specific item.
Yes, you have a collar, you have a O-ring,
Yeah.
or you have something that is unique to them, and you have to buy that part. And that was the whole idea behind using the dental bands, is because you can get those anywhere in the United. I mean, you can get them anywhere you want to go.
Because you're in the business selling broadheads, not selling dental. You're not selling rubber
Yeah,
band.
I want you guys to be out there in the field actually using the product and having the good success with it, not worrying about whether or not you got this rubber band, that collar, this O-ring, or whatever. You just do it. You know, anything that will hold that shut. I got a story for you. This broadhead opens. I don't care what you try to do to it. It will open. As long as you have it placed correctly, it will open whenever it gets to the animal. My brother years ago, been 3 years ago now, and I don't know why he couldn't find dental bands, because we got thousands of these things around, but he was in a hurry to go to the stand and he just couldn't find whatever, right? So he grabs a regular rubber band and wraps this thing around the tomahawk like a mummy. He shot this injured 8-point that night right through the brisket and opened him up like a can of tuna. There was blood everywhere. So we're sitting there going through dissecting and stuff. And if you've ever seen my video, it's on the video.
Yeah.
And I never asked him, because I just figured he shot it normal, right? He goes, yeah, I guess that rubber band worked. And I looked at him and I was like, what are you talking about? Well, I couldn't find my dental bands and stuff. So I just grabbed the rubber band off the table and wrapped it up. I'm like, you did what? He showed it to me. I looked at him and I said, how the hell did that work? Well, it works because the rubber band actually gets pushed back by the animal.
Yeah.
So even with the regular rubber band, it still pushed it back. And Shawn's right. Whenever I sit down to make this thing, I wanted everything to be so simple. I didn't want springs. I didn't want, triggers and levers and crap flying this way and shit flying that way, right? I wanted it to be real simple, because the simpler you can get with a mechanical, the better off you're going to be. Because if you look at some of the other mechanicals, and I'm not picking on them because they've always worked, but a lot of them, if you look at their trigger mechanism, they've got a few flaws to them that's there just because of the way they're designed. Okay, I mean, we can go into that. If you want to sit down and get into the weeds with me on the physics of all that stuff, we can do that. So, but for right now, whenever I made mine, I wanted to make sure that there was no real trigger.
Right.
The animal's trigger.
Right. And I think that's why so many people are so anti-mechanical, because of that.
Absolutely. I talk to people all the time that they didn't open or they failed or whatever.
Yeah.
They failed. How'd they fail? 90% of the time, it's because they didn't open.
Yeah.
Okay. That was the big thing that I wanted to make sure whenever I designed this thing, it will always open. As long as you're 3/4 and above open between those 2 points, that mother will open every single time.
Yeah.
And would you hit bone? That's a question I get every once in a while that I just kind of scratch my head. Why would I make a 4-inch mechanical that couldn't take on bone? Is there anywhere in a white-tailed deer that you can throw 4 inches of broadhead through and not encounter a bone somewhere?
No.
You're really, you slid it between 2 ribs on this side and the other side. If you can do that, hats off to you, but I've never seen it done.
Well, here's my other thing. So, reason I like it. So, I'm a simple math guy. 4 inches. And we already talked about my great shot that you brought at the beginning, right? So if I got 4 inches, right, even if I'm making an errant shot, it's a pretty good probability that I'm going to hit something with 4 inches. I mean, 4 inches is a pretty good ability to cut something vital, even if you make it an errant shot. I think that's what I think is really, really a big deal. It's like you're going to get a lethality shot with it, some shape or form. Even if you shoot a little bit further back than than you wanted to, or something like that. Because we've already said it. Any archer tells you they make a perfect shot every time. They're full of crap. I mean, I've watched some of the best in the business miss deers, why, broadside, you name it. Everybody gets buck fever. Those things happen. So the 4 inches, I'm like, if I get a shot on that animal, I want the most lethality to be able to hit something vital inside that animal. And so that's where you're getting basically an extra inch on each side over the nearest competitor, which I think is 2 inches is the nearest.
You have 2.3 and all that stuff, but then you got to go up.
Yeah.
Let me explain something to your audience a little bit. The difference between a 1 inch broadhead and 2 inch broadhead is not just 1 inch. It's actually exponential. Okay. So if you move from a 2 inch to a 4 inch broadhead, because every time you open up that wound channel farther, the body's defenses on that damage is harder and harder and harder for it to try to close it up. And we all have blood pressure, and that blood pressure goes to that wound to clot it, to close it up, to save that animal. Every time you widen that out, a 1/4 inch, a 1/2 inch at a time, you are not just doubling the lethality, you are almost 3-fold increasing the lethality. So I saw last night, and I kind of hang my head when I see these. There was a kid last night on one of the forums that, I follow all these guys all over the country because I just want to know what's going on. He liver shot this deer here in Illinois. And he was asking advice on what should I do? What should I do? And there's people coming on there, let it lay until in the morning. You got to give it 10 to 12 hours on a liver shot. Okay, guys, I don't know where you hunt, but here in Illinois where I hunt, if you lay that deer overnight, you won't get it because the coyotes will eat it. Okay? Number 2, the 4 inches going through the liver, and we've done this on our own group, and I've seen this from all over the country. Liver shots will go down in 8 to 10 seconds and cover 60 to 80 yards. That's a normal liver shot with this tomahawk. And you will get that. You will get that dark red blood that you see out of the liver, just like you do on your regular double lung shot. It looks just like it, except it's dark red. So I always tell everybody, what you're getting with the tomahawk is now a normal standard tracking job, even on a liver shot, and it will work just like your double lung shot. And if you ever, Shawn's done it several times. He doesn't shoot terrible all the time, but whenever he does a double lung shot, it's like, I've had people call me and go, holy shit, it looked like a murder scene. I've never seen so much blood in one area in my life. I've had that I don't know how many times. And I go, so you double lunged it? Yeah, how'd you know? I said, yeah, because when you double lung it, stuff just, until you've seen a blood trail from the tomahawk, you don't get it. It's just.
The last one I had it sporting on trees and everything. I mean,
feet over here and up in the trees. And I mean, I could show you some that we call it the red carpet treatment. Reason, because it's a red carpet all the way to them.
Yeah,
the amazing thing is on the gut shots, if your exit wound does not get plugged up by the guts and it will allow the animal to bleed, you'll get a blood trail on your gut shots all the way to that animal. We've done it several times.
Well, I think if you get an exit wound, it's not gonna plug up because the guts are gonna be hanging out. Yeah, because the guts are going to be.
They'll plug up as if they're jumping and the guts fall down in that hole and plug it up. But here's what we learned on gut shots: 60 to 150 yards is average. Depends on your animal and how tough they are, whether they want to go uphill, downhill, or whatever. But 5 minutes has been the average time on a gut shot, and they're dead. And we've had deer that people have watched walking through the woods. You know how they are when they get a gut shot. They just kind of slowly walk away, I've had several people call me and say they were just walking and fell over, dead. and never moved. And they thought it was an anomaly. They just kind of went, okay, last time I saw the deer was right. Surely it couldn't be done. Yep, sure enough, they're done. And when I tell people that, they think I'm nuts. The reason they think I'm nuts is because they've never seen that kind of performance out of another broadhead. And all I always tell them is, yes, I understand, but you've never shot a 4-inch broadhead. So how can you tell me that I'm not right?
Yeah,
Whenever
I think
but call me and tell me that. They don't need to tell me that, but they will. This time of the year is Christmas for me because I get phone calls every single day.
yeah,
telling me the performance of the broadhead.
I think the biggest problem that we have is just getting people to try it. I find, and if we got listeners out there, if I could tell you, just try it, man. You got a doe, just go out and shoot a doe. I have people all the time be like, well, I don't want it to mess up a big buck. Trust me, you're not gonna mess up a big buck. But if you got a doe, go out and shoot a doe with it. If you don't want to test it, shoot it on a doe. Test it on a doe. You're not going to be disappointed with it. I'm telling you. It's just
gain that confidence,
Yeah.
so that whenever it does come down the road, you are ready to go. You know exactly what you're going to do to him, and you are ready to pump it to him.
because here's what I tell listeners. You're going to hear all these broadhead tests in the world. So I was going to tell you. So being a retired military officer, I understand what mil spec, and we have all these standardized tests. I've tested some of the most elite equipment in the world. There is no such thing as a broadhead test because nobody in the industry has sanctioned what a broadhead test. So the only real broadhead test I will tell the listeners is shooting it at a real live animal. And so for you to really understand is shoot it at a animal. So you got some does that need doe men, that's the perfect time to test it because nothing's going to tell you more than an actual living, breathing, 98.6 temperature range of how all that works, how it cuts when it goes through. That's all gonna be the way it really tests, right? And that's the only true test we have until somebody comes out with a industry standard. And I still think that industry standard is going to come back to how it does on live animals, to be honest with we
don't shoot some hogs.
Yeah. Shoot some hogs.
They're tough as nails and stuff, and no one cares about them. Just go rip it, man.
Yeah.
Go shoot some hogs.
I think that's kind of been the key, but it is kind of like Christmas time, especially when you hear these stories of the people that shot it. My best friend had never shot a bow before last year, and he really proud of that because he had some eye trouble growing up since we've been friends playing ball since we were 8, 9 years old, and didn't know if he was going to be able to shoot a compound bow, and so we figured out with the adjustable red dot that we were going to be able to get him in a compound bow, and so since probably March last year he started practicing. So he got his archery season got kind of delayed because he got another high school coaching job, and so he's been coaching high school football but anyways, he was going to get a week. Kenny send some broadheads to him, and he got to take a cold buck that we had on the property there where I took that big buck in Alabama, and he called me, and the first thing he said was, "Holy shit." So, and he goes, he said, "Why would it?" And somebody like that who has no preconceived notions is the perfect person to really be like, giving a good example. People just have a hard time because we've been conditioned so much. So this is what we're so used to looking at. I will encourage everybody, throw all that out the window, right?
Yeah, I want to go over two things that you said. I'm going to reiterate exactly what Shawn said about the broadhead test. Guys, I've been doing broadheads for over a decade. I would love to come up with a medium that I could shoot on the off season and test my broadheads so I could understand exactly how they work. And trust me, my brother and I have shot every single freaking material you can think of to try to duplicate shooting a live animal. You can't. It doesn't exist. Think about it. What you're doing is you're hitting fur, skin, meat, bones, fat in just a small area there, and then it gets into the squishy inside, And then you go to the other side and you hit the same hard rib bones, meat, leg bones, whatever, and out. Think about it. A piece of plywood doesn't mean crap. Will my broadhead go through a piece of plywood? I don't know. I don't really care. I'm not trying to shoot houses. I'm trying to kill a deer. And the forces that you're going to have when you smack that piece of plywood doesn't have anything to do with the performance of hitting a whitetail or a hog. It just doesn't. I have a chemistry degree and I have physics behind me and stuff. I used to do a lot of research with people in college. And one of the things, whenever you're doing research, you got to make sure that you have the right parameters. If you have false parameters, your research doesn't mean anything. That's what you're doing on these broadhead tests. I don't care what you're shooting it into. It's a false parameter. So therefore, it doesn't, I mean, anybody can be a broadhead tester. All you can do is have a backyard and a freaking cell phone. Ooh, I'm a broadhead tester. Really? What's your credentials? Well, just because I say I am. Seriously? Because I'll tell everybody straight up, if y'all want to get into a broadhead test, a real broadhead test, I'll take that any day of the week. If you want to put out the animals that you can kill and the animals I can kill, the distance that they run, the trauma that you do, and the speed in which you recover them, I will take that broadhead test. And I'll beat the living snot out of anything else on the market. Because this is our 6 years shooting this thing, and this thing's been lights out. Number two, you were talking about people always getting this. We've all heard the conventional wisdom, right, in the industry. Okay? You know what conventional wisdom, when I hear the words conventional wisdom, that translates to me as you're just going with the masses. You're just following whatever someone says. You don't really critically think about what the hell they're saying. That's just the way we explain something that we can't explain. Okay? Now, when I invented this, my thing was, why have we not advanced broadhead technology since the freaking flint arrowheads that the Indians are using? Why hasn't there been anything that advances what we're doing? Well, the reason is because everybody's doing the same. If you go to shows, consumer shows and inside shows like Shawn and I do, and you walk around and you look at the different broadhead manufacturers and stuff, I defy you, unless you're in the business, to close your eyes and look at the broadheads that are on that table and tell me whose they are. Because if you take all the leading manufacturers and you set them up next to each other and you don't know who they are, you probably won't be able to tell the difference. You know why? Because everybody's doing the same thing. It's either 2, 3, or 4 fixed or mechanical that cut 7/8 of an inch to 1.25 inches on the fixed blades, and up to 2 to 2 1/3 on the expandables. Nobody has decided to push the limits. I have a fixed blade that cuts a 1-inch hole, complete hole right through an animal, and I have the only 4-inch broadhead that's ever been designed on my brand, and I'm going to continue to do that. We have one on the drawing board right now and 2 more in my head. We're developing another broadhead, another expandable broadhead right now as we speak, to go along with our tomahawk. And it will be just as holy shit as that one is. And I will continue to make these broadheads and stuff. What I really need from you guys is, like Shawn says, try it. I need you to try it. And then once you try it and you see what it does and you understand what a 4-inch broadhead is capable of doing, then tell your buddy. Hand him one. Let him use it. Tell him after he kills that deer faster than anything else that he's ever shot, he owes you not one broadhead, but a pack of broadheads. And send him my website and get you a free pack of broadheads. Because I'm telling you, Shawn will tell you straight up, there is nothing on the market that's going to perform like this. And I tell everybody all the time at the shows and on the telephone and stuff, until you've actually shot a 4-inch broadhead and had the experience, you have no idea what we're talking about. Because, Shawn, I bet the first time that you had it and you were going to shoot it, you had this mental image in your head what was going to happen, right?
I did. That's why I called the holy shit, because I wasn't expecting that when I walked up.
I was going to say, and did it come out exactly what you thought? No, because the first words is holy shit. because the very first deer that I killed with it, same thing. I went, holy, wow. I mean, the very first deer that I killed ran straight into a tree. Right, just went out of the food plot and hit a tree in the side of the food plot and fell over dead.
This last one,
his whole entire nose, because he was hit so hard and lost his blood pressure so fast, he was just running dead and ran straight into. That happens a lot with this broadhead. They'll run into trees, they'll run into fences, they'll run into, because they're just running on a straight line for a few seconds. They have nothing left. And like the one gentleman from West Virginia said the other day, he goes, that's kind of a spooky broadhead. I said, how do you mean? He goes, well, when that buck went down, he didn't kick, he didn't move, he just stopped. He just fell over. And nothing moved, nothing kicked, nothing, he was done. And he goes, I've never seen that.
Yeah.
22 yards from the base of his tree, that deer fell over and never moved. And he just sat up there in his state. He goes, I sat there for probably 10 minutes just going, wow. He was expecting him to move or get up. Nothing happened. Of course, I got that phone call. He had to go, I've never seen that before. I know, pretty cool, isn't it?
This last one, I thought I was going to try to figure out if I get stopped by the game warden, trying to explain to the game warden that really was an archery shot, not a rifle shot.
Well,
because that exit, that's when you get an exit move like that, you're like, it should, because it's back to that mental picture, and that I can't explain it to the listeners because we can't show those exit moves. We can't show it. Like the one my buddy Zach, I said Kenny that the exit wound and that deer that my buddy Zach shot the other day. I mean, I don't know that I've ever seen a rifle do what it did to that deer. I was like, it was incredible just to see. And so, yeah, it was, but yeah, this broadhead, as we kind of close it down, the final thing I'll kind of add to it, what I really like about it is, because it is cut on contact, I don't have to use a different broadhead for my wife or my kids. And
right.
we've been able to shoot it on lower poundage bows. And typically, but with mechanical broadheads, you've not been able to do that in the past. I think we'd be remiss if I didn't talk about that piece of it, because to me, that's a big deal. Now I don't have to worry about a different set of broadheads, right?
Absolutely.
I'm shooting the same set of broadheads. My son can shoot the same set. My wife can shoot the same set. I think that is huge.
And when I get guys calling me and I want to use one of your broadheads for my son. Well, how old is he? He's 12 years old. Compound or crossbow? Crossbow doesn't matter. With compound. Well, how much is he pulling? 38 pounds. Tomahawk.
Mm-hmm.
Are you sure? Because they freak out because they think, oh, it's a 4-inch broadhead. No, it's a 7/8 inch broadhead. That's what it is. If I told you it's a 7/8 inch broadhead, would you worry about it penetrating? No. So get past that point that it's 4 inches. Okay. The lowest poundage confirmed kill that we know of is 35 pounds. That's Matt Holliday out of Colorado with a lever bow. I know of 4 different gentlemen that have shot traditional bows with it, and it works just fine. 38 and 37 pound Ben Pearson style old, and it works. Does it blow through them? No, but it puts 4 inches through those lungs, and I don't care what kind of animal is not going to survive that.
Right.
You're right. You see, let's go back to the design a little bit. Guys, whenever I was working on this, I want everything simple, right? So what I developed was a 7/8 inch broadhead that expands to a 4-inch broadhead inside the animal, takes the least amount of kinetic energy to get in. Remember, I'm only making 7/8 of an inch cut on the way in. It's controlled expanding out to 1.25 inches. So that's all I'm ever doing. See, I make a smaller wound than anything else on the market on the way in. That relates to retaining as much kinetic energy as possible to get into those vitals. Because what I wanted to do was attack those vitals. do as much damage to them. And what that allows us to do is retain enough kinetic energy so when she hits at 4 inches on the other side, she'll go out. Now, your lower poundage people, are they going to go out? Probably not. But like I said, if you got 4-inch cut through those lungs, your double lung's only going to go 30, maybe 40 yards. A lot of guys are putting them down to 22, 25, 20. And one guy told me 7, which I find amazing, but he said 7 yards. That's the things that I've done with that design. People just, because once again, they're going with their conventional wisdom. It looks like everything else. They want to compare my design to the way that their other broadheads work. Please don't do that, because you'll be very disappointed. You'll miss out on something because you're trying to say, well, last time I tried a mechanical, it didn't open. Yeah, I know. That's why I made this one. You understand what I'm saying? Well, the last time I did this on a hard quartering shot, it didn't open. I guarantee it'll open. I've got an entrance wound shot, 14.5 inches on an entrance wound shot on a hard quartering away shot on the doe down in Mississippi. I can show you the picture. Not real, just laser her whole side open. That's a entrance wound. It'll do hard quartering shots. I don't like them, but you can do them. It's like I said, it's the largest broadhead ever put through a deer. It retains the most amount of kinetic energy out of anything on the market. And it's deadly accurate and highly lethal. And whenever I ask people, what are you looking for in a broadhead? Tell me something else you're looking for. And it's very durable too. You won't break the blades. If you break the blades, you're going to be only one of 6 that I know of out of thousands of broadheads. So it's very durable. Those blades are mini knife blades. They're huge. They're the largest blade of any broadhead on the market, period. In fact, my blades are probably 4 times thicker and heavier than the next leading one that I know of. And all you got to do is get a hold of them, get them in your hands, work with them a little bit. And like Shawn said, go out and shoot a doe. Yep. And then you can be part of the holy shit family.
Well, hey, Kenny, I appreciate it. We're going to wrap this up, man. I appreciate you talking to us about it. Just kind of, I'll tell you, man, on my career, I've been part of, I've been the 82nd Airborne Division, 101st. We've always been at the tip of the spear, the cutting edge of new technology. I can remember part of the history of the 82nd. I remember when they talked about paratroopers, that was such a dumb idea, but it single-handedly was the reason why the D-Day was a successful invasion. And the reason we were successful in getting into Europe in World War II. So I enjoy being part of things on the cutting edge of technology, and this broadhead is another one of those deals. And I just asked and encouraged, give it a try. Try it out. Let us know what you think. Let Kenny know it. Go to his website, fireinthehole.com, and order you a pack of them. Get your buddies. Once you get them, try them out. I tell you, you'll be part of the holy shit family too, because it does kind of things. Hey, this week on Force on Force, we'll have the championship. We're going to have a pretty cool deal we're going to do, very unique that we've done differently in the past, but really had fun this year having a couple archery hunts. It's really cool to get out there and use Kenny's broadhead on that show. And, really cool to get out there. But if you want to know more about Army bass, buck, duck, or hog, or redfish, go to forceonforcetv.com. Hey, I appreciate you being with us, Kenny.
Well, thank you. Appreciate it.
Thanks for listening to the Force on Force podcast. Join us next time as we dive into more topics from the Force on Force TOC. For more information or to learn how to join the organization, visit our website at forceonforcetv.com.